Okay, so the last type of market failure we're going to look at is market power. And I know we've discussed market power a bit, but I just wanted to quickly go through some of the reasons why market power is an example of a market failure. And the reason high levels of market power is a market failure is because they will lead to generally a more inefficient allocation of resources. So we've talked about in the past that a monopolist is likely to charge a higher price and restrict their output more so than in a perfectly competitive market. And the problem with this is that consumer sovereignty is not maximised because the goods that society wants aren't being produced in their optimal level of output, and prices are higher, reducing our material living standards. The other problem with market power is it can actually lead to a lack of innovation because firms don't have those competitive pressures to increase their productivity. So it's important that the government does everything in their power to prevent market power when it is going to lead to a more inefficient allocation of resources. So here is just a list of some of the ways that the government can intervene to try and prevent market power. So it's very likely that you may get asked, why is market power a market failure? And you will talk about the inefficiencies that occur within an industry that has a high level of market power, and then what the government can do or is doing to prevent this type of market failure. So the first one is regulation of monopolies and oligopolies. So what the government will do, and they have they set up through the ACCC, which is the Australian Consumer and Competition Commission, and their role is to make sure that existing monopolies and oligopolies are not abusing their power. So one of the things that they will do is that they will go around to telecommunications and gas and electricity companies and ensure that those providers are being regulated and not charging too high a price. The second one is the merger test. And what that means is that they won't allow two companies to merge, the ACCC, if they believe that it is going to reduce competition in the market. And this happened with the NAB trying to take over another financial institution recently. They deemed that that was going to limit competition and cause too much market power, and therefore they decided to prevent that merger from going ahead. Another thing that they will do is that there are laws prohibiting against cartels or collusion. Cartel is just another word for collusion. So if businesses decide to fix their prices, if businesses involved in oligopolies decided to fix their prices, or if they would decide to rig the market or divide the market so they each share the customers rather than competing against each other, the government can get involved with that and ensure that businesses aren't colluding or in being involved in cartel conduct. And that happened recently with Amcor and Visy, and it also happened with Qantas in recent times as well, where they've been fined a lot of money for price fixing in the market. Another way that the governments have intervened is deregulating a lot of markets. So rather than running key markets as monopolies, especially in the 1980s, they opened them up to competition. And this happened in the financial sector, which led to more banks, which led to lower interest rates because of increased competition. Happened in the telecommunications, where they made Telstra share their infrastructure with other internet service providers telecommunication providers. It also has happened in a range of other industries as well, including primary produce and the aviation. So Qantas is another example of deregulation. Another one, and the really important one, governments have intervened to reduce market power, is trade liberalisation. And what that means is opening up Australia to global trade. So we can trade with overseas, so we're not just competing with Australian products, but products from all around the world. So tariffs in Australia have been reduced significantly since the 1970s, which has led to more competition and less market power in industries. So it's really important that you're able to pick a few of those and explain how they prevent market failure or market power from occurring. So, for example, in the tariffs example, it increases competition in the car industry, it puts pressure on local car manufacturers to become more productive and efficient, and that causes them to increase their technical efficiency and lower their prices. Government failure is the last thing that I want to look at. Government failure, what the aim of the government is to try and prevent these inefficiencies from occurring and maximise society's wants and needs. But sometimes they actually make mistakes and they lead to a more inefficient allocation of resources than if they had just left the market to its own devices. So it's not a big part of the course, but I'll just set out a few examples that have occurred of government failure in the past in Australia. First one is setting the minimum wage too high. In a lot of industries, they set the minimum wage too high, and that led to a lot of unemployment in those industries because the wage was so high, the demand for labour was a lot lower than the supply of labour because businesses didn't want to employ people because they had to pay them too much, especially in unskilled industries. Another area is in the aviation industry, where they had a two-airline policy up until the 1990s, which led to less competition and therefore more inefficiencies in that industry. Too high tariffs in the 1980s in particular, up to the 1980s, were very high, which led to businesses not being forced to compete with other businesses, so Australian businesses, and led to inefficiencies and a reduced technical efficiency. Other examples are financial regulation, so that has caused that only be a few major banks rather than increasing competition in the banking industry, which led to higher interest rates and reduced efficiency. Some people argue that higher welfare is also causing inefficiencies in Australia because people don't have the incentive to go off and go to work, which is reducing the efficiency of our labour force. And the last one, which I'm not going to go into because we've talked about a little bit, is government ownership of a lot of our individual industries. So things like banks, telecommunications, airlines, railway, all of those used to be owned by the government as monopolies, and that reduced efficiencies in these markets. So that is the last part of the market failure. Thank you.